We are going to go ahead and get started. I am recording this, so if there's something that you miss or something that you want to go back over at a later time, I'll go ahead and send out the link to all the 9th and 10th grade parents. I think I know all of you, but just in case, my name is Sarah Bradley. I am the guidance counselor, one of the guidance counselors at Greenfield School. And a huge part of my job is helping your kids get into college. It's one of my favorite times of year when I start getting texts from the kids that's like, I got in. It's just such a really fun time. It can be a really stressful time, but it doesn't have to be. And I have to say, I'm really proud of the college guidance program at Greenfield because I feel like it's really helpful for parents. I really hold your hand through that entire process. And so I think in 9th and 10th grade, it starts to feel like, okay, I feel like there's a list of things that we should be doing that maybe I don't know about that my teenagers should have already done or should be doing right now or should be doing in the future. And so I thought it'd be really helpful to do this presentation so that you feel like the things that you do have control over right now, you can help your student with, and just know that the stuff that's coming in junior and senior year, I'll be there to help you with and to hold your hand through and to really guide you through that whole process. So I have a Prezi. It's very kind of simple, but all of you are going to go away when I share my screen. And so if you have a question, please just unmute yourself and ask. I don't mind at all. I'd rather you just ask while you're thinking of it. Chances are I'm going to get to everything that's going to be on your list of questions, but if there's something else, I'll stay at the end as well and to answer some questions. Anything before we get started? Okay. All right. Give me 1 second. All right, so the road to college acceptance. What does it mean? What do we need to be doing to make sure that our students are successful? First things first, I want you guys to understand that when your students get into college, it's not because I am some like Harry Potter level wizard that helps them get into college. It's because your kids have genuinely earned it. They deserve it, and we're so proud of all the things that they've done. And so I always joke, but I'm kind of serious when I say I don't take any credit and I don't take any blame. Your kids get into college because they've earned it, and they've earned it over the last 4 years from 9th grade through 12th grade. And so we talk to the students a lot in 9th grade. I know Ms. Powell does a lot in the college awareness class in particular about, your high school career really does start in 9th grade. It really does. Okay, let me let Crystal in. Hang on 1 second. Thank you, Laura, for telling me she got kicked out for some reason. Y'all give me 1 second if you don't mind. Okay. All right, here we go again. So it really does start in 9th grade. Your grades start in 9th grade as far as those things that will show up on your transcript. When we send a college student's transcript, they'll see all semester grades and then final grades for 9th through 12th grade. And so when we talk about what are colleges really looking for, this is what they're looking for. So first things first is GPA. I recognize that obviously a best case scenario is that students get all A's 100% of the time and just knock it out of the park every single time they come to class. But that's just not necessarily the case. Sometimes students struggle a little bit in the 9th or 10th grade year, and they have to write the sales, they have to figure things out. Part of what I can do is meet with 9th and 10th graders, and I offer that to them on a pretty regular basis. Not everybody takes me up on it, but sometimes when students adjust from 8th grade to 9th grade and then from 9th grade to 10th grade, a lot of times we see our 9th graders, struggling just being in high school, being in a totally different group. And then our 10th graders are starting to take some honors and AP classes, and they're just more rigorous, they're just more difficult. And so that can be a bit of a challenge, but that GPA is calculated at the end of the year. That is what actually goes towards their cumulative GPA or grade point average. I do update their transcripts with Ms. Brown, who is our registrar, every semester. And so currently the 9th and 10th grade transcripts are on my desk. As soon as we get back to school, I have already gone through those to check those. And so I'll be talking to your students about what their 9th grade and 10th grade transcripts look like so they can see where they stand right now with GPA. What I want them to understand is if they're not where they want to be, it's not too late. By the time they get to the end of their junior year, it is a little bit too late for them to be, scrambling, trying to fix their grade point average. It is cumulative, meaning it adds up over time. And so I always try to tell the kids to start out how you're going to hold out. It's much easier to maintain than it is to fix. And so if your students struggle that first semester, please encourage them to schedule some time to talk with me, time to talk with Mr. Thompson, so that we can really look at how we can best support them. When we look at their course load, Mr. Thompson and Mrs. Peters in the spring are going to meet with all of our students and look at what they're taking next year. I think that sometimes our students get confused and think that we are encouraging them to take every single AP class, every single honors class, to fill up every single space. I was the kind of student in high school that I needed a study hall once a day. Like I needed that moment to kind of decompress. I needed that moment to get started on my homework because I played 3 sports and I was super busy and I had a part-time job. And so I want you to be really wise about what you're pushing your student to do as far as their course load. That's something that Mr. Thompson and I will talk to them about as well. We can meet individually with the students. We want to push them, but we want to be wise about how we push them. If your student was not in any honors or advanced classes, we don't want to jump into 2 or 3 AP classes. We might start with 1 and maybe an honors class. We're going to slowly build that rigor over time. And so rigor is what the college is looking for. Is the student really pushing themselves to take a tougher course load each year? So that doesn't mean that you have to start out with all honors or advanced or AP classes. You can slowly build over time, okay? When it comes to character, colleges really care about this. They really care that our students are good and decent humans. And so I cannot stress this enough. Students need to make good choices. We are ethically bound to report any out-of-school suspensions to a college. And so there is a question on the Common App or Common Application that says something like, has the student been expelled, suspended, or removed from the institution, meaning an out-of-school suspension? Sometimes we'll use in school. We don't tend to report that to colleges because that's seen more as like an in-school type of detention. That's what other high schools might call that. And so we don't want to ever put our students at a disadvantage. We always interpret that as an out-of-school suspension. So please understand that if your student is suspended out of school, they have to write an essay about it and report it to the colleges. And of course, I have to write a letter about that. So continue just obviously to make the good choices that they're making. Leadership opportunities, you don't have to be the president of something. It could be that you're a part of clubs like Student Government, Chick-fil-A Leader Academy, the leadership program with Mr. Thompson. There's so many different opportunities for leadership here on campus. It's something that we're really proud of and something that we really push our kids to do. There's Youth in Government, National Honor Society, tons and tons and tons of options. Your students, by the time they get to their senior year, are going to need to get at least 2, if not 3 or 4 recommendation letters from their teachers. And so those relationships are built over time and they start in 9th and 10th grade. And so really encourage your students to be talking with their teachers, to be meeting with their teachers. We know that sometimes kids are going to struggle in our class. I teach an AP class, AP psychology. Sometimes kids struggle. It's okay. Struggle is not a bad word. We want our kids to come and talk with us, to come and try to figure out how they can do better, what they can do differently, how they can adjust to be more successful in that particular class. We are really watching what your students do all the time. And I don't mean that in like a creepy way, but we're always watching to see what your kids are capable of. And we always see potential in 100% of our students. We want them to become obviously the best versions of themselves, so that when we write those recommendation letters, I usually talk with the faculty about, this is not a form letter. This is not a letter that we could put somebody else's name at the top of the recommendation letter and it could be somebody else's letter. They're very specific, they're very detailed, and they're very genuine and authentic. Extracurricular activities, we really encourage our students to be involved in tons and tons of activities. So there's a club fair every year where we encourage the kids to join clubs. And one of the things that you're going to do, one of the things that your kids are going to do, the summer before their senior year, is they'll come up with their top 10 list. So it used to be when we applied to college that you had to have a resume. We don't really want a resume anymore. Most colleges actually don't ask for or want a resume. I still make them do it because I believe in a resume, but they actually want a top 10 list. What are the top 10 things that your student has done since ninth grade? So ninth, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. We're not trying to just check boxes. We're not just trying to say, okay, I was a leader one time. Okay, I did community service one time. I did that one club. What colleges really want to see is that your student is dedicated to a particular activity, that, you know, maybe they took dance for 8 years, or maybe they played tennis since 7th grade, that they really committed themselves to something that they were excited about, passionate about, and really enjoyed. There are so many extracurricular activities on campus, between clubs, sports, all sorts of things that your student can get involved in. Community service is the next one. I know that this has been frustrating with COVID for the last year, and a lot of people have reached out to me and said, I just don't know what to do for community service. Lots of teenagers have stopped by my office. We've tried to brainstorm some activities. When I met with the junior class, we talked about having a community service project that's just for them. And let me give you some ideas of what that can look like, even with COVID, even with the restrictions that we have in place right now. So we have 3 seniors that their projects really stand out to me. One actually loved volunteering at the Save a Youth Center, which is an after-school program. And so when she was no longer able to volunteer at Say, she realized that one of the walls was really gray and it wasn't very inviting, and she wanted to do something to help and to support the kids that were still going or that were able to go, and make it more warm and inviting. And so she actually got some art supplies donated, some friends to come help, and they actually painted a mural on this huge wall as you're coming in the building. And so very cool project, very important to her. Art is something that she loves. I had another student that recognized that one of the local after school programs didn't have a library, and reading was so incredibly important to her. And so she did a book drive. She put some cardboard boxes out at school, in her community, at the library, and she donated enough books that now they have this really thriving library. My last student really wanted to do something to help during COVID, and she is a Girl Scout and she really loves projects. And so she sewed a ton, I think 250 masks that she was able to donate to a nursing home. And so, you know, not these crazy, outlandish, you know, raising $10,000 or some huge project, but still a way that they can help that benefits their community, that makes them better people, that they are able to help in some way, shape, or form still. It also shows a tremendous amount of grit and resilience, that even things like a global pandemic are not going to stop them from doing really amazing things. So community service really matters. Being servant leaders really matters. It's a concept that a lot of schools are really looking into. Most scholarship opportunities, let's say you get to do something like the Park or the Moorhead, which are amazing scholarships through NC State and UNC, there's a community service aspect to those programs where they get to do projects that benefit a community in need. And so this is an ongoing thing that is not going to go away when they go to college. We're going to talk about the SAT and the ACT in just a second. So we'll just pause there, and then any awards and achievements, obviously. So that is really, you know, if you're a college admissions counselor and you're looking at this student's application, these are the things that you're going to look at when determining, is this student the right fit for this particular school? All right. And so, oh, sorry, guys. So the next one is the testing schedule for the ACT and the SAT. I've had lots of families ask, when does my student need to start taking tests? So all 10th grade and 11th grade students take the PSAT, which is like the preliminary SAT, in October of their 10th grade year, and then again in October of their 11th grade year. It used to be that the PSAT was this very nebulous number that didn't really make any sense, and we couldn't really understand exactly what the PSAT stood for and how it related to an SAT score. The nice thing is they redesigned the SAT and the PSAT a couple of years ago, and the PSAT very closely matches what the student will get on their SAT. And so that's been really nice. They're pretty comparable scores. It's out of 1,600 points. And so 800 for evidence-based reading and math, and evidence-based reading and writing, and then 800 for math. And so Let's say your student gets a 1200 on the PSAT, they're very likely to get around a 1200 on the actual SAT. When it comes to the ACT, that is an entirely different test. So college admissions will take either the SAT or the ACT. There's very few schools that prefer one over the other. There are some Midwestern schools, like I think Kansas might prefer the ACT, but most schools, it really does not matter. In your junior year, I want you to have taken the full ACT and at least obviously the PSAT. And then what I do is I meet with all of the juniors one-on-one, usually around November or December. And we talk about, okay, where's your PSAT score, which should be around your SAT score, and where is your ACT score? One of those is likely going to be higher. There's not really a rhyme or reason to it, but I use what's called a concordance or equivalency table to determine which is the higher score. Let's say they are exactly the same. We talk about which test you're most comfortable with. If one is higher though, we really just focus on that test moving forward. So when you look at, this is specifically for sophomore parents now, when you're looking at scheduling those tests, make sure that your student gets signed up to take the ACT in the fall of their junior year. Again, they will be taking the PSAT. I will automatically enroll them in that. And so there's no worries with scheduling for that. Some students in 10th grade are taking the SAT in March or April. And that is because they are finishing up the SAT prep class. That's a great opportunity if your student is in 10th or 11th grade and they want to sign up for that class. It's very affordable. And it's 6 weeks with Randy Davis where he does math tutoring. And then it's 6 weeks with Kathy Hayes, who does the reading section. It's been very helpful for the students. It absolutely affects their scores on those tests. A lot of these tests, it's not necessarily about knowledge. It should be, it's supposed to be, but a lot of it is test taking strategies. And so if you were not able to do that this year as a sophomore or freshman as you're rising to sophomores next year, just keep an eye out for that email next fall for that SAT prep class. Even if you decide to take the ACT, those same SAT strategies will be very helpful because it's really about how to read those types of test questions. And so from there, we'll schedule the SAT or the ACT for the spring of their junior year. And then they can also take it again in August or September of their senior year. So my point in bringing all that up is you have plenty of time to test. I don't love to over-test the kids. I have found, and honestly science has found, there's been a lot of studies about this, that sometimes the more the kids test, they start to plateau and they start to decline. And so they get testing fatigue, they start to get in their head a little bit. Testing over and over and over doesn't necessarily equal higher scores. I want them to take the test and then, use some skills, do some study skills. There's free opportunities online, whether it's through the Khan Academy or through ACT. And again, there's paid tutoring in that tutoring class, the SAT prep class, lots and lots of options to improve those scores. One thing that can happen is if a student takes those tests too soon, they can get in their head a little bit if those scores do not reflect what they're capable of. For our students who are on the college prep track and not the advanced track necessarily, for math, they can really, they have not had all of the math that is going to be on that test. And so that can be really daunting and overwhelming if they test too soon. Okay, so that's it for testing schedule for the SAT, ACT. And like I said, if you guys have questions, just let me know. Oh, sorry about that. Class schedules and planning, I talked about this just a little bit earlier, but the rigor of the course load matters, but be wise about what that looks like for you. For some students, that means all honors and AP classes. For some students, that might mean a sprinkling of some honors and AP. And for some students, they might not get to an honors or AP class until their junior or senior year, and that is okay. We really want to, again, be wise about what that looks like for you. Challenge yourself enough that you are doing the best that you can and you're really pushing yourself without pushing yourself to the point of, you're in a little bit or maybe even very over your head and really starting to struggle. Okay. So like I said, Ms. Peters and Mr. Thompson We'll meet with the students in the spring. We also take the recommendations and advice of our teachers very seriously. So let's say a student was in an honors or AP class and just really struggled their sophomore year. We might say, let's really be wise and look at what that looks like for your junior year. We know that kids mature at different rates. And so if you feel very strongly that you've learned lessons from that class and you want to give it another try for the following year, we'll take that into consideration. But just know that, again, we're taking everything that you do in 9th and 10th grade that impacts what you get to do in 10th, 11th, and 12th grade as far as your course load. And like I said, part of that is listening to the teachers and talking with them about how you did in that particular class. Are you turning in assignments on time? Are you paying attention and doing everything that you need to do in the class to be successful? Parents, we will send those scheduling options home with your student, and you actually need to sign off on that. And if you have any questions, like I said, Mr. Thompson and or I would be glad to talk with you about options, what that looks like for your student. And really, for some families, I've sat down and mapped out, okay, this is what your options look like for 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, and 12th grade. And so that can be a really great option. Okay. So we've already talked about transcripts just a little bit. Transcripts are updated in January and then again at the end of the year. And so, like I said, when we get back to school, I will go through those transcripts with your individual students. They will get the opportunity to see where their GPA is right now based upon the classes that they took this first semester. And then, like I always say to the kids every year, if you're really proud of where you are and you feel really good about it, just keep doing what you're doing. If you're not, and we need to sit down, please let me know. If your students struggle, please, please, please encourage them to sit down. Mr. Thompson and I are always available. That's one of the most important parts of our job, is to help our students figure this stuff out. If you ever need to request a transcript, sometimes like athletic teams, like if you play on like an AAU team, they will actually request a transcript. Some summer programs actually request a transcript. Mrs. Brown is all things transcript, and so she's in the office between Mr. Thompson and I, and you just need to reach out to her to get that official transcript request, okay? So I just said summer programs. This really matters. It matters that our students have the opportunity to continue to learn even over the summer. And it doesn't necessarily have to be an academic kind of learning. One of my favorite summer programs is the Shelton Leadership Challenge through NC State. The kids get to do an amazing community service project. They do tons of team building and leadership skills training. And I would say 100% of my students, the parents say when they drop them off, they didn't really want to go, but then when they come back to pick them up, they don't want to leave. It's a really fantastic opportunity. It's only a week. And so it's kind of like a good starter camp for a high school student. There are tons of options. If you go to our webpage, the Greenfield School webpage, I actually have a Greenfield guidance page, and there's a summer programs tab, and it's divided by upper school, middle school, and lower school. And so tons of options on there, and I'm adding to it every day. I have a couple stuff that I got in my email today that I'll be adding as well. I encourage your student to think about a summer program each year and maybe build upon what kind of summer programs that you do. If your student decides to get a part-time job or do community service over the summer, that's fine too. What I don't want to see happen though is that they just are kind of laying around all summer. I know that it's fun to do that and to be a kid, and look, there is absolutely time for that. I want them to do that too, but I want them to take some time this summer and really think about a program that advances them in some way, shape, or form. A lot of times students have an interest where, let's say they're interested in medicine. I've had students that have gone to the Wake Forest medicine program. There's a National Youth Leadership Forum in medicine. One of my students was at Emory University near the CDC when Ebola was there. And they said that was just one of the most fascinating things. They got to like see Ebola and figure out what this looks like, which sounds terrifying, but he was super into it. And so oftentimes those summer programs where they get to learn about a particular topic, they get to see, is this really what I want my career to be and what I can see myself doing for the rest of my life? Or is this something that I'm not really that interested in? That's still useful information. It's still valuable for them to figure that out rather than their junior year of college after you've paid, tens of thousands of dollars for school. And so the sooner they can figure that out, the better. So use that resource. That resource is not all encompassing. I am sure there are many more summer programs available for our students. So a lot of times I'll encourage the kids just to Google, law summer program, high school student, and just see what pops up. Lots of things are going to pop up for you. Some kids have gone as far as UC Berkeley in California. And like I said, a lot of kids just stay right down the road at NC State and Raleigh. It really depends upon comfort level, what they want to study, and what they want to do. All right, so looking ahead, just kind of mapping things out. So January of your junior year, your student's junior year, we'll do the countdown to college. That's parents and students, where we really map out the next 18 months. So today is just about, 9th and 10th grade, looking at schedules, looking at what your student can do right now. And really a lot of it, y'all, is just do the extracurricular activities, do the best you can in class, be the best student you can be the best person you can be. Really figure out who you are. A lot of 9th and 10th grade is about that specific thing. When you get to junior and senior year, that's when we really start focusing more on the testing aspect. More AP classes, obviously the rigor is going to get more difficult as you go through the years, and then really mapping out that college process. I offer a college boot camp. I need to think of a nicer name. Somebody text me if you can think of a nicer name than boot camp. I've called it that for like 5 or 6 years. I need to think of something better. So I offer a college boot camp. It's 2 days for 2 hours each day. It's not that scary, but we do really important things. You can either come in June or you can come in July as a senior in high school. And the 2 important things that we get them really familiar with our college guidance program, which is Navient. It's Navigator Guidance. It's the online guidance program that we use for applications. And then we also work on their top 10 list, and their top 10 list is actually completed by the time they finish that. So they can just copy and paste it literally into their applications. The last thing we do is everyone leaves with an essay topic. There are 7 essay topics on the Common App. We go through each individual one. We talk about which one would be best for that student. And then they leave with an idea of what they're going to write their major essay on. That is their big essay. It's about 650 words, but your student will likely write anywhere from 2 to 4 essays for each application they submit. And so if your student is applying to 5 schools, I'm not great at math, but I'm pretty sure that's 10 to 20 essays per student. And so all that being said, about, I think 5 or 6 years ago, I started this college prep class. And when I designed this class and I approached Mrs. Peters about this, I really looked at this as, what were all the things that someone should have told me before I went to college? And how can I best support our students as they are going through this college application process? I was feeling like parents felt this sense of urgency and need to do more for their student in the college process. And a lot of times when the students would get into college, they wouldn't really feel like they got into college. They would feel like mom and dad kind of got into college because they helped with most of the application. And so this college prep class, the first 6 weeks of class, we're applying to college in class. It's an every other day class. The senior class is split in half, so fairly small class sizes. They get tons of attention. They asked me, 475 rapid fire questions in a row. And I just help walk them through each of these applications. A lot of my seniors utilize me as a resource to look at every single page of their application. When they're ready to hit submit, they send me their username and password, and I look at literally every page of their application. I never edit or change any of it. It's unethical, it's inappropriate. We don't want to end up on the CNN. And so I just email the parents back and the student back, and I say, okay, Johnny, this looks great. I need you to fix the following things in the following places, and then you're ready to submit. And so that college prep class helps a ton. It gives them time to write their essays. It gives them time to edit their applications. And all of my students, I love for them to be done applying for college by October 15th, which is early action deadlines. So by October of their senior year, they're done. Click and submit on everything. After that, we focus on this huge interviewing project. They interview with you, parents. That's their first part of this. We ask them the same series of questions. So you guys would ask them these same questions. We record it. We watch it in class. I always say not to roast each other, but to really give each other constructive feedback. We do lots of soft skills training. and talking about how body language, posture, facial expressions, and the way that we approach situations impacts how people think about us before our mouth even opens. And so when they're done with that, they actually interview with Mrs. Peters and Mr. Thompson, one or the other, and they pretend to be, you know, a UNC counselor that's interviewing you for college. The students come in, you know, suit and tie, or, you know, work attire, basically, you know, higher than church clothes. Like, they're very dressed up, and they come in and they do these very formal interviews. And I know Mrs. Peters and Mr. Thompson love this aspect because they really get to see how much the kids have done over the last 4 years. And the kids grow so much from this experience. And then the last thing they do is a midterm, where we have a group interview. I have had so many kids interview this year, and our children, knock on wood, I have a couple more this weekend, our children have been so successful with this interview process. And so I'm really, really, really proud of all that they've accomplished. We've had tons of kids get scholarships this year that have been interviewed. And so that interview really, really, really does matter, being good at that particular skill. The second half of that class is just like adulting 101. We talk about all sorts of things. We talk about sexual assault on college campuses. Like, I really go there with them, and we talk about keeping yourself and your friends safe. We talk about drugs and alcohol and the risk of addiction. We talk about making healthy decisions. We do a self-care plan. We talk about healthy eating. We do a whole unit on budgeting. And it's always really funny when they look up their starting salary, and then I make them figure out how much they cost. They always go home and thank you, parents. Thank you so much, because they're so expensive. I don't have to tell you. And they realize how much money they're going to need to be able to live based upon that starting salary. And so it's a really fun time for them to really be thinking about, you know, what does life look like after they have launched and flown away. We talk about student loans. One of the biggest goals that I have with the College Guidance Program is that our students can graduate as close to debt-free as possible. And then we end the year with their senior presentation. And that is the college prep class. I think that's it. Okay, you're all still there. That's good. It's really hard to talk to a blank screen. And you know, I think I'm funny. So when I tell jokes and I can't see you laughing, but hopefully that was helpful. And I'm glad to stay on and answer any specific questions that you guys might have.
Where are the ACTs and SATs held at as far as the testing?
So Greenfield offers the SAT 3 times a year. It's August, November, and March. The ACT is offered twice a year. Now, the ACT is a public instruction test, like a DPI test. And so historically, independent schools were not able to offer it on campus, but we have a special contract through North Carolina Association of Independent Schools, NCASE. So we offer that twice a year in October and February, and it's actually during the school day. And so you wouldn't actually register for the ACT if you're taking it at Greenfield on the website. You'll just look for emails from me that says, okay, we're offering the ACT. I'll take the first 16 kids that sign up, and it's offered twice a year. If you can't get it at Greenfield, though, there's tons of options. It's offered at community colleges, ECU. There's tons and tons and tons of options.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. What other questions do you guys have?
Sarah, I have a couple. This is a question. It's Michelle Wilson. Jack's been in several NC State like summer programs, but not the whole summer. Mm-hmm. And he was admitted last year to the Shelton Leadership, but of course that got pushed to this year. Okay. Is that, I know you were talking about summer programs. Do you consider that a part of the summer program as well, or do you mean like the whole summer?
No, that's absolutely what I'm talking about. So even if it's
okay.
I want them to be doing something over the summer that is leadership based, community service based, academic based, athletic based. It could be a combination of any of those things, but not just kind of hanging out at the house. And like I said, if they're only going for a week or two, they have the rest of the summer to do some of that as well.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? All right. Well, I think everybody has my email, my cell phone. Please don't ever hesitate to email, text, just let me know whatever questions you have that are specific for your student. I'm glad to help you. I know I speak for Mr. Thompson and Ms. Peters. We want to hear from you guys. We want to know how things are going, anything that we can do to help and support you guys.
Thank
Sarah,
you.
thank you.
so much, Sarah.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you, Sarah. Good job.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Sarah. This has been awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. Have a great day.
You too.